have traveled a lot in rural and reported. I started counting my numbers, which actually is 10,000 villages. I don't know whether you have done that or not, but please let us know what is wrong that digital is doing in rural India. What are the challenges that it is giving? Why it is perceived that everybody has it, but actually we don't.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming, and a very good morning to everyone. So I'm working on something long-term that's related to migrants and migrant workers in India. So everywhere I travel, I tend to keep an eye out for those young boys who we see at the railway stations, at bus stops, carrying those big backpacks, some of them carrying buckets, or some of them also carrying, pots and pans, looking like they're setting out for another city, another town, a little away from where they live, and they're planning to stay there for a while. And they all have cell phones in their hand, or there are two of them sharing a cell phone, and they're all watching videos. They're watching Insta Reels, they're watching YouTube Shorts, and I see them at railway stations lying down on the floor in the waiting area and waiting for their trains. And they're all on the internet. So at the same time, while there is this sense that there is an acceptance of the digital among Indians from a different class and a different setting than most of us here are from, there is also a very different kind of exclusion, or different kinds of exclusions that I have seen across wherever I have traveled. I made a very, very short list, and this is literally just things that I, as a reporter, am able to see the moment I enter a village, not requiring deep research, not requiring living there for a month, not requiring visiting 10,000 villages. Just as a reporter, I would typically be in a village for a day or two at the most, and that's all the time that it requires me to take, that it requires for us to understand what kinds of exclusions people in those areas are experiencing with regard to digital. So just the last few trips that I have made, what are the kinds of exclusions I have seen? One of the things is that, of course, some areas are just so remote that there is no connectivity. When that happens, then the kinds of exclusions you will hear, I think, from a lot of people who are going to be at the public hearing, and of course from Nikhil Ji. That obviously means that if you're not having connectivity, you're not able to get your Aadhaar authentication, you're not able to avail your rights, your constitutionally mandated rights, you're not able to get even your ration, you're not able to get money, you're not able to get work, because everything now requires you to have access to a digital presence. So some areas are just so remote, also some areas which are hilly, and in fact it looks like people have to walk downhill in order to get connectivity. Those kinds of things, that's one kind of exclusion. Another kind is obviously just that gender. Women tend to just be excluded. So all these young boys who I see on the railway stations with cell phones and watching YouTube videos, I sometimes go up and I ask them, so where are you traveling? And they tell me we're going to Bombay, or we're going to Nashik, or we're going to, sometimes they're going much farther, some of them going to Kerala, some of them going to Tamil Nadu. And so I say, so is it your phone? And it's typically the phone that the father or the male member of the family has maintained and is handed over to a young boy when he's heading out somewhere, or a new phone that young girls, women of the households, almost never. Those who are working now, because the ASHA workers are required to have, the Anganwadi workers are required to have, that's a different kind of people, but just women who are at home and who would need perhaps access to the internet for one or the other thing, they would typically not have a cell phone on their hands at all, leave alone an internet-enabled smartphone. Then there are also the women who are the wives of these migrant workers, wives, sisters, daughters of these migrant workers who have gone away. And so they are not even able, so one of the things that a lot of people tell me is that, this Aadhaar authentication thing is just too much of a complaint. There are other ways that you can authenticate your Aadhaar, and it doesn't have to be via your biometrics, and you can do an OTP. How do you get an OTP when you don't have the phone with you? The phone has been taken off by the gentleman of the house who is away working in another town, and and you are trying to access your ration in wherever your village is, and there is no question of either the Aadhaar authentication via biometrics or via OTP. That's another kind of exclusion that typically women tend to face a great deal. There's also this very unique problem in Bombay itself, where I live, which is of the kind of housing that, because of informal housing, which is so dense in Bombay, there are people who I have had long conversations with who have not been able to study during this COVID period when everyone was studying from home. They couldn't, because internet, your phone doesn't work at home because your roofs are low. It's a very densely built, congested area. In the slum colonies, and you have to stand at the end of the gully or the alley, which is opening into the pavement or the open ground outside or the highway outside, and you have to stand there and study, or sit on the footpath or the pavement there and study. And so then what happens is that typically then the girls are not allowed to do that. The girls are told, no, okay, it's 6 o'clock in the evening, you please go back home. This is not safe for you. You cannot be sitting on the highway. That's another kind of exclusion. So many young women who I spoke to at length during the pandemic could not study even in Bombay, simply because there is no, the cell phone does not work at home. They have to step out into the highway area in order to get internet access. Then there's a problem of lack of digital literacy. So if all these other problems are sort of surpassed, and then there is a woman and she has a cell phone and she has a smartphone, and she's able to use it and she knows how to use it, and she is looking to get her. So this is a case that I reported recently, that there was a case in Nashik, a village in Nashik where there were 30 seconds. There was a village in Nashik where there were a group of men who found their bank accounts had been debited large sums of money, like 20,000 rupees, 25,000 rupees, and they didn't know what had happened, and there were about 6 of them from one village, and when they went to the police station, the police didn't know, couldn't imagine that there would be a cybercrime happening in some remote village in Nashik. Turned out that they had been asked to go update their Aadhaar because the women of the family were trying to get the ration. And so they went to get their Aadhaar updated. And on account of poor digital literacy and account of poor safety standards that in these Aadhaar updation centers or Aadhaar updation camps, because of poor security, their Aadhaar, all the matter was cloned, and there was a person, a criminal in the group of people who was running the Aadhaar updation camp, and he was just able to get all their details and quickly withdraw money. It's frightening that these kinds of exclusions, and this is literally of the last 4 or 5 things that I remember reporting. So if we really look at it in much more detail and do some research, we'll probably find 20 other kinds of exclusions also.
What do you think that we can go forward to regain our citizenship or internet at commons?
Just that I'm going to say something that takes off from what Sonia said earlier, yeah, and also what Mr. Ranjan said earlier in the day about agriculture. And Sonia said that our digital society lives within our wider society, and I want to add one line to that, and that existing power dynamics within our society will not be wished away by technology. And so there's something that I have seen happening to farmers, that they have no idea of how valuable their data is that's being handed over to companies that are offering AI in agriculture, machine learning in agriculture, in order to use that data to make predictions, and that power dynamics really should be part of policy making going forward.
Thank you, Sonia.